when threats come into the environment, the biological imperative is the first to waken you to the threat. Okay. Where is it? Well, that's what he said. Well, in the neural system, I go, we don't even know where it is. And it was there in bacteria before there was much of a neural system. So all of a sudden it goes, boy, we don't know where it is, but we know it exists. And the relevance about that is that we all live by this biological imperative, which protects us. Okay. And then I said, well, as you said, if a threat is looming, then the biology switches its action, community, organization from growth into protection.
Mhm.
And they're mutually exclusive. I'll just give you a reason why. If there's a stimulus that offers growth, you go to that stimulus and you go with your arms open to take it in, assimilate. It's growth. It could be food, it could be love. I don't care. You open up, you go to the stimulus, open up and take it in. That's growth. Protection, you go away from the threat and you close yourself down in protection. I say, guess what? You can't be in growth and protection at the same time. They're mutually exclusive behaviors. So when we get into protection, we shut down our openness and our growth in the world, and we start to look at how can I preserve myself in this threat. Okay. And I say, well, how does the body make a response to this? I go, that the hypothalamus, which interprets the signals, interprets the fact that there's a threat. And when it does that, it sends a signal to the pituitary gland. The brain, hypothalamus, says, oh, this is a threatening situation. And it sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which in high school was called the master gland, because its secretions control 50 trillion cells that are in your body. And then in a state of threat, the pituitary sends a signal to the adrenal glands, which in school was called fight or flight. And all of a sudden it says, what happens? The adrenal stress hormones go to the body and they redirect the system. They take away the energies that are involved with like growth, the energies involved with the immune system. And I go, why? Look, if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, bacterial infection is not your big deal at that moment, okay?
Mhm.
And the immune system uses tremendous amount of energy because when people get sick, sometimes they don't even have energy to get out of bed. Okay. So, what are we talking about? When we get in stress, we want to allocate all the body's energy to escape. And escape uses arms and legs. So I go, the energy is where? In the blood. So I go, so what happens when stress hormones come in? They redirect the flow of the blood and they take the blood and preferentially send it to the arms and legs because that's where the energy is going to activate to get me out of there. And I go, well, preferentially, where was it preferentially before the stress? I go, it was in the gut, the viscera, all the
Mhm.
organs in here. I go, well, what were their functions? Growth, maintenance of the body, cleaning up the system, preparing the energy, taking care of the machine more or less. Okay. But at the moment stress hormones are released in the body, the blood vessels in the gut respond to the stress hormones by squeezing shut. And when they squeeze shut, that means the blood is not really going into the gut, but it's now going preferentially into the arms and legs. And that's where we want to get that energy to run. So, number one, stress hormones shut down the growth mechanisms of the body. Number two, they shut down the immune system because that's a high energy system that is not relevant to an external threat. And then number three, which I always call the adding of insult to injury, is the blood vessels in the conscious brain are energizing conscious creativity, thinking, and action like that. But the conscious brain is a very slow processor compared to the rest of the brain back here called the subconscious brain. And the subconscious brain is not only extremely fast beyond conscious brain, but it's a million times more powerful. So what happens is, remember I told you the blood vessels in the gut constrict with stress hormones. That's where people get that butterflies in the stomach kind of feeling, queasy feeling, because what's going on? The blood vessels are all squeezing shut. You can feel them. And that's the queasiness.
Yeah.
But then the stress hormones go into the brain and they do the same thing in the conscious blood part of the brain. They squeeze the blood vessels shut. I say, so I'm not nourishing or energizing my consciousness, but when I squeeze it shut, the blood is then sent to the back of the brain where the subconscious has reflex behavior, reactions, high speed, very fast. We become less intelligent when stress hormones are there because we're not using thinking, we're using reflexes.